Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. Welcome to Red Rock Firewood. Today, I just want to have a discussion about that age-old question to store firewood in bins, as you see here on the right, or to stack your firewood, as you're going to see coming up here in a minute. That is that's my level B firewood. This is the good stuff. This is the premium. This is my oak, and I've had this stuff stacked for coming up on a year now. Out here in full sun and full wind, and it is dried nicely. I'm currently selling this stack to my pizza restaurant, and today I'm going to be loading a load of locusts. I've got some black locusts and some honey locusts that are kind of intermingled on the same stack. I've got a heating customer that really wants that stuff, and so I'm going to be loading a load. You can see the pickup truck over there. We'll be loading there. But I just wanted to take a walk around. There's a lot of controversy right now in the YouTube firewood space about whether to stack your firewood or pile it in bins. And I am really torn. I'm torn between three options. Another option that's not as popular, but something that has been kind of becoming more popular for me, or that I'm intrigued by, and that is the use of these 1/6 cord bags that I purchased from Shaver Equipment, from AJ Shaver. Um, and you can see I'm invested in the stacking option. You can see that stack there is some red oak, and you could easily see the line there between uh, what was old and dry and what was new. And then I've experimented with bins. Right here is a new experiment with pallets. I tried just, instead of putting sides on the pallet bin with the cherry right there, I just let it spread out. Here's a mixed hardwood bin. Here is some mulberry that I had two stacks of mulberry, and then I put some pallets down between it. There's a small stack of cherry, and then over here is my big bin of mixed hardwood, and this thing was entirely full, and I'm just about out. I've got a few loads left. Um, so I most of my firewood I deliver a sixth of a cord, or a third of a cord rather, at a time. And I use this Harbor Freight unloader. You can see that I've got my bed retrofitted with some sides that make the sides of the truck smooth, and so the wood slides out better. I can toss the load in and then back up to where I'm going to be unloading it and just turn the crank, and all the wood slides out. It does not get caught in the wheel wells. I know I found this unloader from uh, Joe over at Ohio Woodburner, and I think it looks great and works great. Um, I just wasn't interested in unloading part of the load by hand to get the wood away from the wheel wells, and so I made these things. They actually fit. There's a piece that wraps around the top. They fit down into the bed pockets, and that's what holds them in place. And so anytime I want to remove it, I just take a couple screws out of the portion that is the headache rack protecting the cab, and I can lift that thing off. But today's topic of discussion or thought or whatever, the bins are far more efficient when I'm making firewood. And so I'm in I love that better, particularly if I could get my hands on a conveyor. Um, I think that would be a really fast way to make firewood and pile it up quickly, and you do save some time there. The thing I'm struggling with right now is that when I'm loading the truck, it is I can load my truck way faster and with way less kind of angst and bending over and straining on my back if I'm loading off of a stack. And I just have not yet been able to decide um which way I like better. And so I'm doing some combination of both. Um I do not stack it in the truck, and I take that back. If I stack my truck full and round it up nice and high, I can get half of a cord in my truck. And so there have been a few times that I've stacked my truck full. I think it was my last video, I did that firewood rant, and I'd stacked that load in for that customer. It does not unload as well. The Just having it stacked, there's more pressure on those sides, and turning the crank on the unloader, it does not come off as easily. And obviously, it takes a ton more time to toss the wood in, then climb up and stack it in place. And my customers don't seem to care. Um, Obviously, there is an aesthetic improvement there. Joe talks about that a lot, and that's great. And Joe also stacks his firewood, and I like his business model. I like his system. I also follow Chris over at In the Woodyard, and that's where I learned about the bins and and how efficient they are. And I agree, they save a ton of time on kind of the leading edge. I feel like it takes me more time. My camera is slipping. I did not realize this. Sorry about that. Don't get seasick. Um, Maybe we'll edit some of this out. Okay, now that I got you back upright, you can see I'm standing here. I'm standing in one place. All the pieces of wood are going the same direction, and it's a lot easier to just grab them and chuck them up in the truck and and go on about that. Um, but yeah, and so when I processed this locust, my girls were off school. It was summertime, but it wasn't too terrible hot out, and so I was able to pay them a commission, and they did most of this stacking for me. So when the girls are available, that works out really good because I love paying my girls to help me out with this kind of stuff. If any of the child labor Gestapo are listening, then I was just kidding. But you get you get what I'm saying. They like helping out, and it's something they can do, particularly since I split my wood as fine as I do, so that it's, you can pick it up with one hand. If I was doing bigger chunks of boiler wood, more traditional heating wood size, that probably wouldn't work. I also really love the 1/6 cord bags from Shaver Equipment or Shaver Products, however they build themselves. Um, and I've watched his channels. I've done a YouTube video where I was dumping one of those bags into my truck, and I got a full bag of them, or a full box of them, a full order of them. So I'm going to be processing some wood straight into them, and just seasoning them in there, and just seeing how that goes, how that works. I can't really tell a difference as long as I have my wood out in the sun and the wind, and I haven't gone more than 2 rows touching each other. You can kind of see here that row that I'm working off of right there. There's kind of two together. Both of those are locust, and then there's an air gap, and then that next row is actually bur oak and white oak. I don't see a difference in the speed with which they dry. They both seem to dry really fast here at my spot. Again, completely open to the west, a long fetch for the wind to catch, lots of air movement and full sunshine for most of the summer. Um, it dries really, really well. So I can't say as I see a benefit there. I did get a little bit of mold in my big mixed hardwood bin, but that bin was huge, and that wood was incredibly green. Like, those trees were living. I cut them down and split them and put them right in there. And it's not a lot of mold, but there was just a tiny little bit of mold in there. So I can't say anything bad about either system. They both have their pluses and their minuses, and I'm just really struggling to figure out which one I like the best. One of the things I enjoy about my firewood side business is just the enjoyment of kind of trying different systems, trying new things, seeing what works best and is most efficient for me and gets the job done well with the least amount of work and all those things. I like thinking through those things and adjusting my processes and doing stuff different, and changing a lot. I don't really get heavily invested in one system or the other. As you see, I've got bins, and I've got quite a few stacks, and I'm actually, yeah, there I just dropped half of that armful, so that was a loss. But at any rate, I guess I'm just, a lot of my videos are day in the life. I'm just, and obviously I don't show everything that I do in the woodyard. on my YouTube channel. I just try and show what's interesting, or what hopefully you find interesting. Um, Most of what I've been doing recently is just loading wood and shipping it out, and I feel like that gets a little repetitive, so I don't necessarily take the time to film every time I do that. I don't always have time to film every time I do that. But today, when I was loading this wood, this is the first load that I've loaded directly off of a stack into the truck for a while. And yeah, it just kind of brought that question back to the surface again. How am I going to do it this year? Um, as I, kind of get back into production here as we get past the holidays, and presuming the weather stays as nice as it is now, and all our snow's melted, so you can see in the background, like over the top of my head, the top of the shoulders there, all that wood out there is red oak, white oak, some hickory, all really great stuff that needs processed. Um, and I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna store that. Am I gonna do bins? Am I gonna do the bags? And because that's what was in my mind as I was loading this wood, I just thought I'd bring you along for that. This is a long time customer for me. I've been selling wood this is my second season, and he was one of my first customers. And I took him a load of locust last year. He'd been buying mixed hardwood, ash, and just kind of odds and ends, whatever. And he bought another couple loads of that this year. But last year I'd sold him one load of locust that I had left. And he said, man, he said, that stuff made really good heat. I want some more of that locust. So now that we're getting into the depths of winter a little bit, and this wood is good and dry, we're getting him a third of a quart of locust. I will just take it to his place, and he just has a spot next to his garage. I just unload it on a pile, just run that Harbor Freight unloader and crank it off on a pile, and he handles it from there. And yeah, $100 for the wood, $20 to deliver it. It'll be a good day. So drop a comment. Let me know, what conclusions you've come to about stacking or putting it in bins, and what you think works best. I think if I could get a conveyor, I think that would kind of push me towards the bin side, because I could envision myself spinning the conveyor around and using it to load my truck, just to save tossing it up in there. So that may be an option in the future. But for today, we're loading it off a pile, and this load is loaded, ready to go down the road. Here's kind of the bird's eye view, and works really great hooking the top of that unloader over the top of the headache rack. And we'll get this delivered. That's how much of the pile we've used up so far. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.